Welcome to the InSight Out Show. I'm Devin Almonte, and together we are learning to see the world through God's eyes and doing our best to live that out in our everyday. I want to tell you about our dog, Annie. She's 8 years old. We believe she's an English Shepherd mix, love of our life, totally spoiled. And we adopted her in 2017, I believe, from Russia. We found an organization called Sochi Dogs, which is a US-based international nonprofit. Great organization. And not because we were trying to be all fancy adopting an international dog. We tried to adopt locally. We got rejected. We got rejected multiple times by these shelters and organizations that exist for the sole purpose of finding dogs good homes. So we're going to talk about that today and why this is still happening to good people and good families who are being turned away and rejected. So the whole lingo marketing phrase, adopt, don't shop, is great, but it's not nearly as easy as they say it is. Now, I know what you might be thinking. You seriously couldn't adopt here? What kind of places were you going to? There has to be more to the story. You really had to go to Russia? Well, yes, we did. I remember getting the call from one of the local shelters or organizations. It's nerve-wracking. The person's on the line, no compassion, no conversation, just you're waiting to see if you're going to get the dog. And they say, you didn't do what we believe you should have done, and we're unable to move forward with this adoption. Have a nice day. And click, that was it. No, oh, could you fix this? Could you do that? It was just done. Like I had failed the test. I didn't even know I was taking. And it's like an awful feeling because you feel like you've done something wrong when you're just a family trying to give a dog a good home. Most of this came down to our vet records. And since we already had one dog, our dog Henry, a Bichon Shih Tzu mix, they wanted to see how we cared for him. And Henry, sadly, he passed away just a few weeks ago, 14 years old. We're still grieving very hard. Our family dog when my husband and I first got married. I'm trying to remember, I think we were a few months behind on his physical. Yes, vets recommend annual physicals for dogs. Sometimes they actually recommend it twice a year as your dog gets older, which I totally understand, but it's kind of funny because with my own health and my own physicals, I don't think I pay that much attention to them. And I'm delayed on my own physicals. So whatever, it is what it is. And then there were the vaccines. We didn't do the Lyme's disease booster or the flu shot or all these things that weren't required by law, all technically optional. And they didn't like it. I'm not talking about things like the rabies vaccine that is required by law. We've always been up to date on everything that's legally required. I'm talking about all these things that are like the extras, non-core vaccines, the ones that every major veterinary authority classifies as optional. And it depends a lot on your lifestyle, where you live. I mean, our dog Henry, besides walks, he would go out the front door to pee on the bush and then he would come back in. If he wanted fresh air, he'd go on the deck for a little while, like for 10 minutes. That was his life. He was basically a homebody on the back of our couch. And what I find interesting too, the American Animal Hospital Association, they are the organization that they write the vaccination guideline. And in their 2022 guidelines, which I believe are still the same for the most part today, let me read this. It says, routine vaccination of shelter-housed dogs against Lyme disease and canine influenza virus is not recommended because these infections usually pose a minimal risk within the shelter environment. So we are being held as families that want to adopt to a standard that they aren't holding to themselves. All they want to do was do a good thing and take home and love on a rescue. We are not negligent pet owners. We are a dog-obsessed family. These animals, they are our world. Okay, we take great care of them. Henry, our senior dog, before he died, which was so sad, just watching him decline, but we have him in dog diapers for his bladder issues. We were about to, which I can't believe I was going to do, but I was going to do it. We were going to purchase a doggy stroller because he couldn't walk as well as he used to, and he loved to get out with some sun on his face. So yes, we were going to be one of those families carting him around in the dog stroller. We gave him arthritis injections. Like, we are completely on board. But isn't a good and loving home, regardless of whether or not you got the flu vaccine or whether or not you have a fenced in yard, better than life in a shelter? I'm not the only one here.
These are all the reasons my fiance and I were denied adopting a dog from the shelter. You guys all know that I have an adopted dog. He was not the first dog we applied for. He wasn't the second dog, he wasn't the third, fifth, sixth, 10th. He was like the 13th dog we applied for. Proof of income, I had no bills. They asked for previous dog breeds. My fiance, he's owned Yorkies and Maltese. Mine were Labs, Dobermans, Akitas, and Norwegian Outcomes is what my family's owned. They were like, yeah, well, you've never owned a German Shepherd mix. Are people never allowed to get a dog breed outside of their original dog breed?
It's so bizarre to me. There was this other woman named Katie from Indiana who her story was picked up by NBC News. This was a number of years ago. And she wanted to adopt like we did. She was looking for a lab or a golden. Family dog had passed away. And so she applied to one of the local rescues. The application, of course, these things are pages and pages long. It asked her about her medical conditions, whether she and her husband were planning on having children, what their work schedules look like, and they rejected her. The staff member told her it was because she was not a stay-at-home puppy parent. So what is the solution here? Is she supposed to quit her job? Is that the solution, just to adopt a dog? Oh, and she ended up getting a puppy anyway, but not from a rescue. And now the rescue lost a good home. A dog in that shelter lost a good owner. For what? Even the ASPCA, that's the American Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals, their own vice president of research and development, again, this was a number of years back, and this is a person working for one of the biggest animal organizations in the country, was denied adoption because she was living in a rental home at the time. She was working on her PhD at the time. And so the entire system said, nah, we don't think that's good. That should tell us that something isn't working so well with the current system. Now, some of these stories are older. There hasn't been a whole lot of news coverage since then, but these stories, they're still happening. And we tend to hear a lot of them on TikTok in some of these TikTok clips. I want you to listen.
Why does it seem like a lot of rescue groups don't actually want to get their dogs adopted, despite how often they complain about how few adopters they have? A lady complained that she was denied from another rescue because she doesn't have a fenced-in yard and she works full-time. These kind of ridiculous blanket denial rules only serve to deny qualified great homes from adopting.
I feel like I'm coming down on these rescue organizations, and I'm not exactly. I'm very thankful and grateful for their work. Most are run by people who just genuinely love animals, and they work hard for them. Because let's go back. There was a time, it was the 1970s. There were over 13 million animals that were euthanized in shelters every single year. Today, we're down to 500,000. So that is huge. That's great news. But somewhere, I don't know, the mission has gotten lost. Best Friends Animal Society, they're one of the leaders in this space as well. And they described it pretty well themselves. They said the application that they had, it started kind of basic and then got a little longer and a little stricter. And then at one point they were asking, if there's a fire, who do you rescue? So if I'm looking to adopt, I'd probably say my children. And they're like, wrong answer, no dog for you, you're rejected. And of course, I'm exaggerating here a little bit, but the fire question was real and they admitted it went completely out of control. That's the industry describing its own failure. In their 2023 survey, 92% of rescue organizations were not following open adoption best practices. Open adoption, I mean, that's kind of like where you just come in and take the dog. It doesn't mean you just hand this dog off to anybody that walks in, but it means you have a conversation with that person instead of like this courtroom interrogation setup. And maybe even allow same-day adoptions. And maybe you don't need a fenced-in yard or have a vet on file before you can even consider being accepted to take the dog home. One rescue had gotten so strict that they were declining 90% of their applicants. 90%, like nobody is getting a dog. But then came to their senses, they removed some of the barriers, and oh, what do you know? Adoptions went up, no dogs were harmed, more animals found good homes. And like going through all of this, I started wondering, is there a financial incentive or motive behind all of this? Is there a purpose more than what we see for rejecting all these good families? And there might be some small unintentional incentives, but that's not really the main problem that I see. Most of these places are run by passionate people who genuinely love animals. But these places, they barely break even. They usually take a loss on every single dog they bring in. I think the real issue is that the screening has just gotten so completely out of control. It's like you're looking for the perfect babysitter and nobody is ever good enough. That's what I think it's become. And I do also just want to look at this from a faith perspective, because there is a human tendency in organizations and companies and in our own lives and our own hearts to get just so caught up in the rules that we lose sight of the reason the rules exist in the first place. The Pharisees did this. And it reminds me of what Jesus said. This is in Matthew 23. Hold on a second. This is Matthew 23:23. You tithe mint and dill and cumin and have neglected the weightier matters of the law, justice and mercy and faithfulness. And so the rescues, they'd probably push back here. They'd say, well, the screening is the mercy and it is the justice. They're protecting vulnerable animals from neglect and abuse. And yes, that's right. That's good. That's where this all started. But Jesus wasn't talking just to people with bad intentions. He was talking to the people with good ones who had gotten so focused on protection that they lost sight of what they were actually protecting. And so you're doing all this good, but you're getting distracted by all these other things. And because when 90% of your adoption applications are rejected and you're turning away loving homes, I think you're forgetting what it's all for. And those that truly want to adopt, like we did, like our family did, you don't stop looking for a dog. You just stop looking to adopt. You're going to go someplace else. It's too difficult. And so then more dogs will end up sitting in shelters. I would love to see these policies change where there's less scrutiny, there's more conversation, there's more compassion for the people that are looking to adopt. And I mean, there's no such thing as a perfect home, but there is such a thing as a good home. And a good home is going to beat a shelter home every single time. So I'm hoping we'll see some things change there. Now, because this is InSight Out, we don't just talk about these things. We try to do something about them. On our website, you can check it out. We have a resource section with some guidance on everything for dog adoption, what to know before you adopt, what to look for, how we can bring about change to some of these applications and policies, and how difficult it can be to actually adopt. It'd be nice if that would be a little easier for families and individuals that just want to bring home and love on a rescue. So we'll have all that there. The website is insightoutmedia.org. And also, if this has happened to you, as it did to our family, if you've been turned away or you ever felt overlooked, come find us on our Facebook page at Insight Out Media. Please share your story, because we are going to keep digging into this a little bit, because it's bigger than pets. It's about these systems that have lost sight of people and the animals that they were built to serve. So coming from a good place, but trying to help bring it back into a better place. So maybe you know someone that needs to hear this. Share it with someone. Subscribe if you haven't already. And please like the episode if you got something out of it. Much appreciated. And until next time, let's see clearly, choose wisely, and live InSight Out.